As Micah's casket is lowered into the earth, my phone lights up with a photo I will never unsee. My sister Serena, mid-toast, champagne glass raised at her engagement party. My parents smiling behind her. The timestamp, 20 minutes ago. While I bury my son, they're celebrating across town. The casket is far too small for any child, but especially for Micah. That cruel detail brands itself into my mind as the ropes groan and the ground opens, indifferent to everything except gravity. But nothing weighs heavier than that image glowing from my screen, proof that even in death, Micah was not enough to pull them close. 8 months ago, the doctors finally named the monster that hollowed him out. They called it a rare blood disorder, as though syllables could soften the truth. Micah bore the news with more courage than I ever managed. While I unraveled, he steadied, meeting treatments, fevers, and endless needles with a bravery that put grown men to shame. He'd look at me with his father's eyes and whisper, "I'm okay, Mom. Don't worry." Now the grave is quiet, but what hurts more than silence is the absence of those who should be here. No parents beside me, no sister, Serena, who once promised loyalty. No Jade, my best friend since childhood. Their seats are empty, but I would soon discover they weren't mourning elsewhere. When I pull out my phone, an impulse I instantly regret, the truth lights up the screen. Serena's engagement party is in full swing at the Silvercrest Hotel. Champagne raised, diamond glittering, my parents beaming at her side. The timestamp, 20 minutes ago. The celebration ran parallel to my son's burial, laughter echoing while I stood alone at the edge of the earth. A fragile voice breaks through the weight of silence. "Are you doing all right, dear?" It belongs to Mrs. Whitaker, my elderly neighbor, the only soul who chose to stand beside me today. Her hand, soft with age, rests on my arm, carrying more comfort than the dozens of people who should have been here but weren't. For 18 months, she was the one who kept us afloat. Cooking when hospital visits drained me, sitting with Micah so I could shower, treating his illness not as a burden, but as life worth honoring. My whisper falls from my lips, bitter and hollow. They didn't come. Not one of them. Her eyes soften, but inside me, a different ache stirs. The memory of Micah's unfiltered laugh, the way it would bubble up from his chest before sickness stole it. I see him at 7, bold in superhero pajamas, declaring he'd grow up to heal kids like himself, because real heroes are brave even when scared. "That boy loved you more than anything in this world," Mrs. Whitaker says, her words threading into my grief. I nod, remembering how my ex-husband Daniel created an $850,000 trust for Micah's future before leaving overseas. "If anything happens," he'd said, "you're the beneficiary." I remember Daniel sending me the initial trust paperwork. He was serious even then. "No one touches his future but you, if anything happens." I held the papers in trembling hands then, wondering if they meant enough to him, to all of them, to be honored. Even in his distance, Daniel had drawn a line. And now, that line was all I had left to stand behind. "You'll honor his memory." He hadn't known how quickly those words would turn from precaution to prophecy. Grief knots inside me. I want to scream at my parents, demand to know how they could toast champagne at Serena's engagement while their grandson's body was lowered into the earth. Yet numbness creeps in, a paralysis born of exhaustion. 18 months of fighting, memorizing medical terms, battling doctors who dismissed symptoms, sleeping in stiff hospital chairs. And now, nothing left to fight for. Until my phone buzzes. A text from my mother. "We need to talk. Bring the trust documents tomorrow. Shock slices through the haze. They skipped his funeral but want his trust fund? My reply is sharp. I'm burying my son today. I can't talk about paperwork. Her response is instant, chilling. Don't be dramatic, Delilah. This is important for the whole family. The same family who couldn't spare 2 hours for Micah. In that moment, I see the truth. This isn't about grief. This is about money, about stripping away the last piece of my son I have left. His legacy, his future. I show Mrs. Whitaker the message, and her face hardens. Oh dear, they can't possibly think. But I already know they can. Whatever their plan is, it can wait. This moment belongs to Micah. I place my hand on the casket suspended above the earth, my body refusing to take that step away. I kneel, placing it gently on the casket's polished surface. I'll protect what's yours, I whisper. Sometimes, in the hospital's fluorescent buzz, I'd close my eyes and imagine him at 18, arguing politics, his smile wide, telling me the constellations by name. I still hear it sometimes, like an echo only I can catch. And in that vow, through the crushing fog of grief, something flickers alive inside me, a spark. Behind me, the cemetery worker waits, but I stand frozen, because walking away feels like leaving my boy alone. Give her a moment, Mrs. Whitaker tells the cemetery worker, her frail voice holding more authority than anyone else's presence today. He nods, stepping back, granting me the space I need to say goodbye. My hand slips into my pocket and finds Micah's favorite action figure, the one that never left his hospital bed. I kneel, placing it gently on the casket's polished surface. I'll protect what's yours, I whisper. And in that vow, through the crushing fog of grief, something flickers alive inside me, a spark. By the next morning, the spark has hardened into resolve. Rain spits against the windshield as I drive toward my parents' colonial house in Maplewood Heights. The steering wheel creaks under my grip. My throat tightens with each mile. Yesterday, they chose champagne over shovels, celebration over farewell. Today, I face them. When I pull up, a silver BMW waits out front. Jade's car. Of course she's here too. The door opens before I reach it. My father stands there, wearing a mask of fatherly concern polished smooth from years of practice, but his eyes are empty. Delilah, come in. We've been waiting inside. The living room feels like a boardroom. Serena sits on the sofa, spine straight, hair sculpted into perfection. Jade perches beside her, suddenly fascinated by her nails, while my mother lingers near the mantel, her hand resting on a family portrait staged years ago. Not one of them mentions Micah. Not one apology. Instead, my father slides a document toward me across the coffee table. We need to reallocate the trust, with Serena as trustee. Sign here and here. The words scrape against my ears. I don't move for the pen. What are you talking about? Serena leans forward, voice calm but sharp. Father pauses, fingers hovering over the documents, then presses down with a slow incoming tone. You don't seem well enough, Delilah. He doesn't say trust. He doesn't need to. The implication thunders in the silence. We're trying to help. My mother adds her false sweetness. You've always been impulsive. Remember that boutique you wanted after college? Thank goodness your father stopped you. Their kindness is a mask stretched too thin. I glance at Jade, praying for some remnant of the friend who once held me up through heartbreak. She avoids my eyes, silence becoming its own betrayal. My father taps the papers again. We've already spoken with Daniel's lawyer. Given your mental state, he agrees this is prudent. The words land like punches. My hands shake as I skim the documents, phrases about mental competency evaluations, legal jargon that strips me of agency. Then I see it. Research notes on trust law, dated 14 months ago, the exact time Micah was first hospitalized. The realization sears through me like fire. You've been planning this since Micah got sick. My voice is a whisper, but it carries the weight of betrayal years in the making. While I was sitting at his hospital bed, you were researching how to take his money if he died. The words fall out of me like stones, but Serena only sighs, tilting her head with dramatic exasperation. You're exaggerating again. That's exactly why we're concerned. My father doesn't flinch. He slides another paper across the table, his tone clipped and businesslike. If you refuse to sign, we'll petition for guardianship. The court will understand that grief has compromised your judgment. And just like that, the full scope of their betrayal comes into focus. The gaslighting, the dismissals, the months of undermining me. It wasn't careless cruelty. It was strategy. Memories shift under this new light. My mother's words 10 months ago. It's probably just anemia, Delilah. You always make mountains out of molehills. My father's condescending smile. These doctors are exploiting your anxiety. He just needs vitamins. Serena's excuse when I begged her to visit. Hospitals are depressing. He's going to get better anyway. They hadn't just been absent. They'd been positioning themselves, waiting for the worst to happen. A corner of blueprint peeks from beneath the trust papers. I tug it free. Renovation plans for Serena's new house. A $200,000 kitchen remodel. A home theater. A pool with a waterfall. My anger sharpens into clarity. You never even visited him. Not once in 8 months. My voice is steadier now, stronger, no longer trembling. Serena tosses her head, impatient. We all grieve differently, Delilah. Some of us just handle it better. The casual cruelty lands harder than any scream. For the first time, I see my family for what they are. Not a support system, but opportunists. People who used me and Micah as props in their perfect family portrait. Useful only when convenient. Why now? I press, steady but unyielding. Serena exchanges a glance with my parents. Something silent passes between them, an admission they'll never speak aloud, and that silence says everything. A tiny, private signal passes between them, years of practice folded into one look that always shut me out. Serena finally speaks for all of them. Fine, you deserve to know. Her voice slides into a rehearsed explanation. Lucas's development company is strapped for cash. The wedding might be delayed without more funding, my mother fusses with her pearls, and the coastal property in Hilton Head, the market turned, she whispers, we're overextended. My father softens his tone the way he uses to close deals. We're not villains, Delilah. We're a family facing hard times. Melissa chimes in, small and urgent. My divorce finalizes next month. Serena promised me a role at Lucas's firm. I need this, Delilah. I have twins to think about. Their faces no longer read as caricatures of greed, but as frightened people clutching a lifestyle they refuse to relinquish. Their fear is a weapon. Their comfort is non-negotiable. My father's patience cracks. If you don't sign, we'll pursue other remedies, he warns, and his kindly tone slips into something colder. We need this settled in 60 days before Lucas's next financing closes. The deadline is the hammer. Their desperation is the spark. My mother reaches for my hand and recites the family ledger of favors, breadcrumbs of care meant to justify this moment. I almost laugh at the memory of $20 birthday checks and monthly, surface-level calls. Their performance collapses under its own weight. You're not thinking clearly, my father says, voice hardening into the same command I heard in childhood. I gather the papers with deliberate calm, slide them back into the folder, and stand. I need time to think, I say, and walk to the door. His voice follows me like a tether. Delilah? But I close the front door with quiet finality. In the car, the world presses in. I press my forehead to the steering wheel, the wet windshield echoing the day's rain and the rawness of what just happened. My phone buzzes, a text from Mrs. Whitaker. How did it go? I'm here if you need to talk. Before I can type a reply, another call breaks through. It's Daniel's parents. My hands tremble as I answer, bracing for more indifference. But instead, Martha's voice pours through the line, warm and breaking. Delilah, dear, we just heard about the funeral. We're so sorry we couldn't be there. We were overseas. We loved that boy so much. George's voice cracks as he adds, he was everything to us. Their grief is raw, unpolished, real, a sharp contrast to the performance I'd just endured from my own family. As I hang up, something stirs, a memory. Daniel once told me, if you ever need guidance, call Richard Donovan. He's the best trust attorney in the state. The name lands like a lifeline. For the first time all day, a flicker of hope burns through the fog. I am not alone. Not with Mrs. Whitaker, who fed us when I had no strength. Not with Daniel's parents, who loved Micah without condition. And not with the lawyer who safeguarded his future. My decision solidifies. I won't fight this war alone. I scroll to the contact, my fingers steady now. Mr. Donovan's office? A receptionist answers. I need to speak with him immediately, I say, surprising myself with the steel in my voice. It's about the Micah Cole Trust. Hours later, I sit in a room lined with leather-bound books and polished mahogany, the weight of legacy heavy in my lap. 2 sleepless nights of online research have taught me little. My knuckles whiten around the folder of documents, my last armor. When Richard Donovan enters, he is older than I expected. Silver hair, sharp glasses. But his handshake is steady, his gaze both kind and probing. Mrs. Cole, please sit. I'm sorry for your loss. His words carry empathy, not obligation, and it almost breaks me. I slide the folder forward, my voice cracking. My ex-husband Daniel set this up before he left overseas. These are all the trust papers I have. Richard studies the pages with seasoned eyes, nodding, pausing, absorbing. The silence grows thick until I break it. My family wants me to sign over control of the trust. The words taste bitter, but naming their betrayal out loud transforms it from secret dread into something tangible, something I can finally fight. They claim I'm not mentally stable enough to manage it because of my grief. The words burn in my throat, heavy with betrayal. They didn't even come to Micah's funeral. Richard's head snaps up, his eyes sharp behind the glasses. They didn't attend? I force the truth out. No, Serena had her engagement party the same day. My parents and Jade chose her over him. Richard exhales, removes his glasses, and pinches the bridge of his nose. Then he opens a desk drawer, pulling out a manila folder labeled with Daniel's name. My breath stutters. Records. Ethan had been meticulous, even from an ocean away. Richard extracts a notarized page, Daniel's statement of intent. My tears blur the words. This trust secures Micah's future, and if the worst happens, provides for Delilah, who sacrificed everything for his care. Even from a distance, Daniel had seen what I could not face. There's more, Richard says, swiveling his monitor. A spreadsheet glows with familiar numbers. My parents' landline, Serena's cell. They contacted your office? My voice sharpens. Richard explains. They'd called about beneficiary laws. never reaching an attorney, but enough to raise flags. The truth carves through me. They knew. They'd been preparing for Micah's death before it came. Richard's voice hardens. This trust has multiple protections. Ethan made sure of it. They have no legal standing. None. The trust is ironclad. The crushing weight on my chest eases slightly. So, they can't take it? Not legally, he admits. But they might try another angle, claiming you're unfit from grief. My mind flashes to my mother's dismissive text, Serena's cold calculation, my father's silence. So, I don't need to fight for the trust itself, I say slowly, piecing it together. I need to prove their intentions. Richard nods. Documentation strengthens your position. Do you have anything? I show him my mother's texts from the funeral. His brows rise. This is excellent. Now we arrange a meeting. Your terms, public space. Control the narrative from the beginning. 2 days later, I sit in Riverside Coffee, envelope on the table like a blade. The cafe hums with customers, my safety net. Outside, Mrs. Whitaker waits in her car. Richard's number is ready on speed dial. For the first time since Micah's diagnosis, I don't feel entirely alone. My family arrives as a unit, Serena leading with designer shades, my parents behind her, Jade trailing in silence. They sit without ordering. Serena reaches for the envelope. So you've signed? I knew you'd be reasonable. My hand clamps the folder shut. Before we discuss papers, why didn't you come to Micah's funeral? Serena's eyes flickered when I asked why she didn't come. For a breath, I thought I saw regret. Her perfect composure faltered as she glanced away at the family portrait. Then, the mask snapped back into place. My mother sighed theatrically. Serena's engagement was planned months ago. We couldn't cancel. My father muttered, "We grieved in our own way." I opened the envelope, sliding out screenshots, Instagram posts time-stamped during the funeral. Champagne, diamonds, laughter. While I was burying my son, you were drinking champagne and laughing. My voice is steady, but the cafe grows quiet. Serena's cheeks flush. You're taking those out of context. That's not fair. I slide a second paper from the envelope. The notarized trust terms, the clause highlighted in yellow. No amendment without grant or consent. Daniel made his intentions unmistakable. This money is Micah's legacy to me. My father reaches for the document. Let me see that. I snatch it back before his fingers can close. I've spoken with Gideon Reed, I say, voice steady. He has Daniel's original statement of intent. The trust cannot be modified, transferred, or accessed by anyone but me. Serena's perfect composure cracks. You don't deserve that money. You'll just waste it. Her words slice through the coffee shop chatter. Heads turn, embarrassed stares prick the air. My mother hisses for silence. I look straight at Serena, calm, lethal. Are you worried people will hear how you tried to take advantage of your grieving sister? How you skipped your nephew's funeral but won his college fund? Serena stands up, breath sharp. This is ridiculous. We're only trying to help. I gather the papers, folding them into the envelope. I don't need your kind of help. I'm not signing anything. Ever. My father leans in, voice low and threatening. You're making a mistake, Delilah. We can make things very difficult for you. I rise, the memory of a lifetime of his control hardening into refusal. You already have, I answer, standing, but not anymore. Their stares burn into my back as I walk away. Outside, Mrs. Whitaker waits in her car, window down, face proud. You stood up to them. Good for you, she says as I slide into the passenger seat. My phone rings. Gideon calling for an update. I tell him everything. He listens, then warns they'll escalate. but affirms we're legally strong. After we hang up, Daniel's parents ring with offers to fly in and testify about his intent. Texts from an old coworker arrive, support from people who actually showed up for Micah at the hospital. For the first time in weeks, the pressure on my chest loosens. I am not alone. 3 days later, my hands are steadier as I spread documents across Gideon's mahogany desk. Grief still pulses beneath my skin, but sitting among affidavits and timelines, a cold clarity takes root. They'll likely file for guardianship, Gideon says, tapping a brief. Their clearest path is to argue grief makes you unfit. I run my finger along an 18-month timeline of hospital visits, every appointment, every transfusion. My calendar proves I never missed a single one, not even the day after Daniel left overseas. Gideon nods with respect. Document everything. We prepare, we don't move until we're ready. When they come, and they will, we'll be waiting. I trace the ridges of a hospital bill with my fingertip, the tiny codes and line items I learned to decode when I became Micah's unpaid advocate. 8 months of treatments, and not one visit from them. Not one. Gideon leans forward, voice steady. This isn't only about proving your competence, Delilah. It's about proving they never cared for Micah, only his money. The sentence lands like a gavel. The hurt in it steadies me, and I say, then that is exactly what we'll prove. As Gideon lays out the plan, I can barely hear him. My eyes drift to the corner of his office, where a child's crayon drawing hangs, a crooked sun, a stick figure labeled Dad. It hits me like a wave. Micah will never draw again. I sign the affidavits with a hand that once stroked his hair during chemo sessions. Each page feels less like defense and more like a eulogy. We'll lead with the medical documentation, Gideon says, tapping the stack. Every hospital visit you attended. I nod, anchoring myself back to the room. These aren't just documents. They're proof that while my family threw parties, I held my son's hand through every transfusion. I mention Mrs. Whitaker's journals, her daily notes of meals brought, nights she sat with Micah. Gideon nods. Perfect. A neutral third party carries weight. I add the oncologist and Micah's teacher to the list. Both agree to character statements. I call Daniel's parents. They coordinate with his attorney to document his intent. The plan snaps into place, each ally another proof point. The next day, I open a box I had forgotten. Inside is Micah's nightlight, shaped like a smiling moon, the one he insisted on having even at the hospital. I plug it in, and it flickers softly in the dark corner of my bedroom. It becomes the first piece of a new kind of armor. Gideon walks me through the strategy. Security cameras installed to catch any sudden visits. A psychiatric evaluation scheduled with Dr. Warner, who specializes in grief, not to justify my sanity, but to document what resilience looks like under fire. As I scroll through old texts, I build a digital wall, each message where my mother called Micah dramatic, where Serena brushed off the bruising as just low iron. Each one is a receipt of their indifference. My voice doesn't shake when I say it now. They minimized his suffering while preparing to steal his future. Gideon meets my eyes, solemn. That's not just negligence. It's a pattern. And that's what wins cases. I watch autumn leaves tumble across the parking lot, and the memory of Micah in last October's crisp air steadies me. The way he laughed at the crunch of leaves, how I wheeled him outside just to feel the cold on his face. Gideon's practical tone pulls me back. Document everything, he says. When my phone buzzes, Mrs. Whitaker's text about Melissa asking the hospital about treatment schedules, I feel the reality sharpen. They are gathering ammunition. The blow lands. Melissa has likely signed an affidavit about my instability. The betrayal from a childhood friend cuts deep. Gideon's silence confirms the danger. Then Mrs. Whitaker appears with a stack of notebooks. "I documented everything," she declares, placing them on his desk. "Every hospital night, every meal, every quiet vigil. The pages are proof. The presence of someone who actually showed up is evidence that steadies the doubt and turns it into a case. Every meal, every night. I wrote it down because you never left Micah's side," Mrs. Whitaker says, her voice steady as she places the journals in my hands. Then she grips my fingers with surprising strength. "Don't let them make you doubt yourself, Delilah. That's their only weapon." Her warmth grounds me like an anchor. I glance between her and Gideon, then to the fortress of documents we've assembled. My son's legacy, shielded not by sentiment, but by hard evidence. Each affidavit, each medical record, each witness statement is another stone in a monument to truth. "You're right," I tell them, my spine straightening. "This isn't just about the law. I have to be ready for them to smear me too." That evening, after Mrs. Whitaker leaves, I tape the final photograph to Gideon's evidence board. My family raising champagne glasses at Serena's engagement party, time-stamped 42 minutes after Micah's casket was lowered into the ground. "That's the last piece," Gideon says. The wall before us tells the full story. Betrayal mapped across 18 months. Medical records of every visit I made. Witness statements from teachers and neighbors. Bank records proving careful stewardship of every dollar. Beside it all, a stark absence. My family's total neglect. "Will it be enough?" I ask, touching one of the files. Gideon answers firmly, tapping Daniel's notarized statement of intent. "Their position is already tenuous. We've anticipated every angle." Still, my voice falters. I never thought I'd have to prove I was a good mother. Gideon lays a hand on my shoulder. "You shouldn't have to. But when people want what isn't theirs, they'll invent whatever story serves them." My phone buzzes. Mrs. Whitaker again. 23 neighbors have signed the character petition. A small win, but it steadies me. I've built an arsenal of truth. Security cameras, text archives, voicemails, screenshots of Serena's online whispers about my fragile state. On Facebook, she writes about praying for a loved one struggling after loss. Sympathy floods in for her, but no one asks why she skipped her nephew's funeral. Gideon shakes his head. "Classic strategy. They can't win in court, so they're trying to win the crowd first." The phone on Gideon's desk rings. He listens, his face darkening with each word. When he hangs up, the silence feels sharp. "That was my contact at the hospital," he says. "We've got a bigger problem." Gideon sets the phone down, his face grim. "That was my contact at Memorial." Someone pulled Micah's full medical records yesterday. My stomach plummets. "Who?" His answer is a knife. "Serena. She'd used an old emergency contact form to worm her way in." The room tilts. "They'll twist everything," I say, voice rising. "Every moment of doubt, every question about a medication, every tear in front of a nurse, they'll use it to paint me unfit." Gideon steadies me with his gaze. "It proves desperation. A breach this blatant shows how far they're willing to go." He flips open his laptop, keys tapping. Then he turns the screen toward me, LinkedIn messages from my old supervisor. "Delilah, your sister called. She's asking about your emotional stability when you worked here. What's going on?" The words sting sharper than any legal motion. "They're building a case against me on every front," I say, anger breaking through grief. "They're trying to erase everything I did for Micah." Gideon shuts the laptop firmly. Then we counter with defamation. "This isn't just about the trust anymore. It's about your name." I close my eyes and see Micah's brave little face during chemo, never once complaining, even on days when the fevers racked him. If my 9-year-old could face death with courage, I can face my family with the same steel. Let them try, I whisper, my voice steady. We have something they don't. Gideon asks, "What's that?" I turn to the wall of evidence. The truth. By night, our response is ready. Character witnesses lined up, counterclaims sharpened, evidence organized into iron. Mrs. Whitaker calls to confirm the security system works flawlessly. Daniel's parents are flying in with original trust documents. For the first time, I feel gratitude replacing despair. But the calm shatters the next morning with a sheriff's knock. His face is blank as he hands me a thick manila envelope. "Delilah Cole, you've been served." The weight in my hands feels wrong, too light for the destruction it carries. At my kitchen table, I spread the pages. Emergency petition for guardianship. My breath stops. They're not only coming for Micah's trust. They want control of me. Richard calls as I flip through the affidavits. Melissa's signature stares back. Page after page catalogs my weakest moments. The night I sobbed in a hallway, the morning I forgot my own pills, the meals I skipped, twisted into evidence of incompetence. Worse, the petition quotes private medical notes Serena never should have seen. Gideon's voice hardens. "That's our counter. The ethics committee will shred the hospital for this, but the pages keep coming. Financial statements, overdraft fees, late payments, proof of sacrifice reframed as recklessness. Each line another weapon forged from my devotion to my son." "The hearing is tomorrow," Gideon states, calm and certain, while the weight of the petition sits heavy on my kitchen table. Fear flickers through me. This is no longer only money. They are trying to strip away my autonomy, my dignity, my identity as a competent adult. The pages paint me as collapsing, incapable of rational decisions, a danger without supervision, and the headline on the local news confirms their campaign. "Family seeks help for grieving mother." My father's quote blares beneath it, rehearsed and pitiful. Social media amplifies their story into sympathy and verdicts before the court has even convened. Gideon tightens our defenses. Ethan, Daniel's, parents have arrived with documentation of his intent. The hospital ethics committee is already probing the unauthorized records access. Witnesses and professionals have submitted affidavits. Neighbors have rallied. My former supervisor and Dr. Levine have provided statements attesting to my steadiness and medical decision-making. The dossier on our evidence board grows into something undeniable. We file a counterpetition with a restraining order and include security footage of Serena and my mother testing doorknobs at my house. Nights of prep blur into a sharpened resolve. Gideon's list is complete. Character witnesses, legal exhibits, expert evaluations, and a plan to expose their motives instead of letting theirs become the story. At 9:48 p.m., the doorbell camera pings. Serena stands on my porch, alone, an actor switching to a softer role. I record before I open the door, chain-latched, and listen to her offer. "Drop your opposition. Sign the trust to me. We'll keep your episodes private." The word episodes falls like acid. Every 3 a.m. call, and shaky hospital night recast as evidence. A strange calm settles over me. I do not beg, bargain, or flinch. I close the chain a notch tighter and answer with steady firmness, because for the first time in months, I am not simply surviving grief. I am preparing to protect Micah's legacy with everything I have. "I think you should leave now, Serena." My voice is steady, sharper than it's ever been. For a flicker of a second, her mask cracks, rage flashing across her features before she forces it back into place. Her words spill venom through the door chain. "You were always the burden, the problem child, the disappointment." We carried you your entire life. Now it's time you did something for this family." I close the door silently, my hands calm at last, and forward the recording to Gideon. His response is immediate. "Perfect." Her mask finally slipped. This is exactly what we needed. By midnight, Mrs. Whitaker arrives with an overnight bag, her presence a balm against the storm. She sets tea on the kitchen table and squeezes my hand. "Tomorrow, we show them what real strength looks like." Minutes later, a text from Gideon glows on my phone. "Everything is ready. Daniel believed in you. So do we." Sleep evades me, so I retreat into Micah's room. His glow-in-the-dark stars still shine faintly on the ceiling. I clutch his stuffed dinosaur, open my locket, and whisper to his smiling face, "Tomorrow is for you, buddy. For your legacy." For the first time since the sheriff's knock, I don't just feel fear or determination, I feel ready. Morning comes. I walk into the courthouse flanked by Gideon, Mrs. Whitaker, and Daniel's parents. The polished wood feels like a temple where truth should triumph. Across the aisle, my parents, Serena and Jade, wear practiced masks of concern. All rise for the Honorable Judge Marion Peabody. The judge's severe gaze falls on both tables. These are serious allegations. Evidence, not emotion. Their lawyer paints me as a shattered woman. Erratic, isolated, unfit. Melissa follows, twisting my midnight pleas into proof of hysteria. My mother takes the stand, her tears well-timed, her words dripping with false sorrow. "This isn't about money. We just want to protect our daughter." I feel dread tighten, until Gideon rises. His voice is controlled thunder. "What we're seeing here is not compassion, but calculation. They abandoned her during Micah's illness, yet appear only when his trust fund is at stake." He dismantles their claims with hospital records, every treatment, every sleepless vigil documented. Catherine Winters, the records administrator, testifies. Serena accessed Micah's private medical files in violation of law. The courtroom murmurs as Serena shifts uneasily. Then Mrs. Whitaker takes the stand, voice steady, recounting every meal, every vigil, every story spun to calm Micah's fears. Finally, Robert, Daniel's father, steps forward. Robert's voice is steady, unwavering. "My son created this trust with explicit instructions. If anything happened to Micah, Delilah was to inherit everything. She sacrificed her career, her savings, her life to give him the best care possible. No one could honor his memory more. His words hang in the air like a shield, and I see the judge's eyes sharpen, her gaze no longer sympathetic to my family, but dissecting them." Gideon rises. "One final piece of evidence, Your Honor." The courtroom speakers crackle with Serena's voice from last night's porch recording. "We'll destroy your reputation completely. Everyone will know how unstable you are." My calm reply follows. "I think you should leave now, Serena." The mask slips completely with her next words. "You think you deserve that money? You were always the burden." The room shifts. My sister flushes crimson. My mother gasps behind her hand. My father stares stone-faced ahead. The judge calls a recess, and when court resumes, Serena tries to speak, but Judge Peabody silences her with a single sharp gesture. Gideon presents the coffee shop recording next, their voices damningly clear. My mother promising Caleb's trust would settle Serena's mortgage, Serena citing beach house repairs, my father declaring, "Once we have guardianship, we can use the money however we want." Delilah won't have a say. Silence consumes the courtroom. Even their attorney fumbles with his papers, beaten before the verdict is given. When Judge Peabody returns, her expression is granite. "This court finds no basis for the emergency guardianship petition. What I do see is a coordinated attempt to exploit a grieving mother for financial gain. Petition dismissed with prejudice. Furthermore, I order an investigation into possible perjury by Melissa Bennett and Charles and Elaine Walker. A restraining order will prohibit all petitioners from contacting Miss Cole. The trust is unfrozen and secured against further challenge. The gavel strikes like thunder. Serena's composure collapses, her features twisting as her plan dissolves. My mother weeps real tears for the first time. My father's stare is hollow. The bailiff blocks them as they attempt to approach me. Judge Peabody looks directly into my eyes. Ms. Cole, you have acted with remarkable strength and clarity during an unimaginable loss. Your son would be proud of how you've defended his legacy. Legacy isn't just what you leave behind. It's what you show up for. It's not counted in trust documents or courtrooms, but in the moments of absence and presence. I stand here today not just with what was given to me, but with what I refused to let them take. Outside, reporters swarm, microphones thrust forward. A month ago, I would have ducked and fled. Today, I stop. Today, justice was done for my son. I say firmly, locket in hand, Micah's bright smile inside. The cameras flash. I walk toward the future he would have wanted, not just survival, but strength. Weeks later, in a quiet office, a financial advisor slides a folder across a mahogany desk. These investments will preserve the principal while funding scholarships in Micah's name. I study the numbers, unafraid, empowered. The trust is no longer a target for vultures. It is a living legacy. His memory, his bravery, his love, all transformed into something that will outlast betrayal, shining forward like the stars he once admired on his bedroom ceiling. 1 week after the hearing, the world feels reshaped. The Pediatric Hematology Fellowship must be fully funded, I insist, tapping the proposal. That's non-negotiable. My voice carries certainty now. The advisor nods, scribbling notes, while the restraining order holds firm in the background. 1,000 feet of enforced distance between me and those who once called themselves family. Family. The word feels strange now, less about blood, more about paperwork. The local paper names me on the front page. Mother vindicated in trust battle. Dozens of calls and messages follow. Even Serena's fiancé reaches out, apology tumbling into the announcement that their engagement is over. My parents face perjury charges. Jade loses her job after her testimony circulates online. Consequences bloom where lies once grew. Outside the advisor's office, Mrs. Whitaker waits in her old Buick, window rolled down despite the chill. All set? She asks. All set, I answer, sliding in beside her, remembering the hospital runs, her soup-filled thermoses, her steady hand. Never thought I could do this. Stand up to them, build something lasting. She pats my hand. I knew. From the moment you placed that action figure in his grave and made that promise. That night, I sleep without nightmares. No machines, no sterile corridors, only Micah, laughing, whole, sprinting across sunlit fields. Gideon calls the next morning. The foundation paperwork is filed, the trust airtight. Neighbors organize a meal train, each evening bringing warmth to my doorstep. I learn a truth that steadies me more than any legal win. Family isn't always blood. 6 months later, I stand in the pediatric blood disorder unit, the walls bright with underwater murals Micah would have adored. A plaque gleams by the nurse's station, the Micah Cole Memorial Wing. A young nurse extends her hand. I'm Jennifer Abrams, the first Micah Cole scholar. Thank you for this opportunity. My smile comes easily now. He wanted to be a doctor one day. He'd be thrilled. The foundation spreads its reach. Emergency housing for families in crisis, meals and transport for parents by children's bedsides, specialized training for pediatric nurses. Mrs. Whitaker coordinates volunteers. Gideon manages the law pro bono. Daniel's parents visit monthly, pride in their eyes. Ethan's mother says softly, "You've created something beautiful from something tragic." I glance at Micah's photo in the wing that bears his name, his baseball cap tilted, his grin wide, and for the first time, I believe it. His fight was not in vain. His legacy breathes here, in every meal delivered, every family sheltered, every child given a chance. She and Robert have become grandparent advocates, guiding others through the maze of hospitals and paperwork that once consumed us. I've found my own place too, standing in support groups, mentoring parents who are just beginning their fight with chronic childhood illness. The first step is believing you can do this. I tell them, steady now. The second is knowing you don't have to do it alone. My voice no longer trembles. My hands no longer shake. The woman who once stood paralyzed at her son's grave has become someone else entirely. Resilient, steady. A woman Micah would be proud of. 1 year to the day after his funeral, I walk the familiar path back to his grave. It feels different now, not a march toward despair, but a walk toward connection. I trace his name on the granite, warmed by morning sunlight. A voice interrupts softly. A mother, Sarah Mitchell, with her 7-year-old daughter. "Are you Delilah Cole?" she asks. "Your foundation saved my daughter's life." Emma steps forward, shy but brave, and whispers, "Thank you for helping me get better." I kneel, meeting Emma's eyes, the eyes of a future my son never had. "You're very welcome, Emma." Standing again, I tell Sarah that fighting for Micah's legacy reshaped me, gave me strength I didn't know I carried. She listens as I explain how the foundation is expanding. Research grants, advocacy programs, new wings of support that will ripple out for generations. When they leave, I reach into my pocket. Micah's action figure rests in my palm, the one I placed in his casket a year ago and later retrieved. I set it gently against the stone. "I kept my promise, Micah. Your legacy is safe. Stronger every day around me is no longer absence, but presence. The family I chose, who chose me back. Not bound by blood, but by loyalty, choice, and love." As I walk toward my car, sunlight spilling across my face, the truth settles deep in my bones. Sometimes the sharpest betrayals carve the path to the most powerful transformations. I am no longer only surviving loss. I am living a life that honors everything my son taught me. Courage in the face of fear, love in the face of abandonment, and the certainty that even the smallest legacy can change the world.